name's Ian, and somewhere down below me is my son, Josiah, and I'm also married to my wife, Katie, and we have another daughter who is 4 years old called Chrisitian. And we are missionaries to Macedonia, and we're heading out there on the 27th of February 2018, so in just 2 weeks today, the day that we're filming this, which is very exciting for us. And so today I'm just going to tell you just a little bit of the story of how we got to this point. And I was born in Warrington. I've lived here all my life, and I always felt that Warrington was going to be my mission field. I always felt, this is where I'm going to be. Warrington needs Jesus, and there's no reason for me to go anywhere else. And about 5 years ago, I remember thinking this, and God just put a prompt in me that just said, don't be so sure. How are you to say that that's what you're going to do? And that was it. And from that point, I had a bit of a sense that maybe God would one day call us to something else. And it was about 2 years ago, at the start of 2016, Josiah, our youngest, was just a few months old, and we felt God push us and prompt us to start pushing the doors of overseas mission a bit more. And one of the ways he did this was through the story of Abraham. If you know the story of Abraham, you'll know that God called Abraham to go, but didn't really give him much more detail as to what would happen after that, and the fullness of everything that was going to go on. He just said, go, I'll make you into a great nation. And that was kind of it, and more got revealed as it went on. And now that's the call that we very much feel that God has given us to go, and he will fill in more detail. So it was quite a challenging time for us. We were like, okay, we think that God has called us to do this, but how? And how do we go about doing that? And what do we do? We've got 2 young children. How do we make that happen? So we consulted with our church leaders in the first instance, and they suggest signing up and registering an interest with Elim Missions, because we go to an Elim church. And so we did, and we joined a program of training with Elim Missions to prepare to go overseas. And as part of that training, we had the opportunity to discuss the location where we might actually go. And we were sat having a Skype conversation with the missions director, and he said, would you consider going to Macedonia? Now, I'm going to be really honest, we'd never actually heard of it. I mean, I knew it was in the Bible. I knew it existed in the time of Paul going on his mission trips, but I'd always just thought it was one of those places where the names had changed and that it was no longer in existence anymore. So we had to Google it, and we found out that Macedonia is just above Greece. And just to confuse you a little bit further, there is a region of Greece that's also called Macedonia. But just above that is where the country of Macedonia is. It's one of the former Yugoslav countries. And I'm just going to introduce you to this one whilst he's walking past with his raisins, and you can sit there if you like. And so we went for a visit. We went for a visit last February, and we really felt that this was what God was calling us to do. We went up to the capital, which is a place called Skopje, and that's the place that we're actually going to be based, where we're going to be beginning the work that we feel God's asked us to do in that community. And so that's then taken us 12 months to get from that point to the point where we're going now. But in that time, God has been amazing, God has been faithful, and he's really, really looked after us. And I'm just going to tell you a few little bits and pieces about what he's been doing. So,
I don't want my raisins.
You don't want your raisins? So, it's really convenient that Josiah's decided at this point to come up, because, as you know, we're a young family, as I've explained, and one of the challenges is, how are we going to do mission as a young family? And one of the things that God has said to us is that we're going to go and we're going to be a family on mission. So we're going to do this as family. This isn't the case of these guys just coming along and kind of being put to one side, or you go and do this whilst we go and do our mission work, but that we're called to be missionaries together as a family. So we're going to use our family as an opportunity to develop more mission opportunities. And that's one of the things that God's said to us over the past year. God's also been really faithful in the raising of the finances. We're not at 100% of our budget yet. We're taking a step of faith that God will provide everything. But he's been amazing in what he has provided so far. And through people, some of whom we'd never even met before, but had caught hold of what we were doing and wanted to be involved, and also from some people who we've been walking with for a long time. So that's been a real blessing to us that God has done that. And so when we go, we've got some real simple things in mind. Firstly, family on mission. How do we reach the people of Skopje, the people of Macedonia, as a family? Secondly, we believe that God's given us some information and some scriptures about working with the vulnerable. But again, he's not given us loads of detail about that. And that's really it. We're going to be partnering with a local church there called Oasis in Skopje. It was planted about 4 years ago. And we're just going a bit like the Apostle Paul did. And that's for us what makes it really exciting. We're going to go. We're just going to follow God's leading day by day. We haven't got a project in mind. We haven't got a schedule in mind of we'll have done this by this date or we're going to work on that. We're just going to go and see what God says. And so we'd really value your prayers. If you're watching this today, would you please pray for us? Firstly, I'd really appreciate it if you would pray for us as we transition into a new country. Of course, we have got a young family. We need to ensure provision for them, and we've managed to arrange an apartment and the option of a kindergarten for them to join with as well. But as they step away from friends and family, as we do too, we'd really appreciate your prayers for the transition. Secondly, if you would please pray for the practicalities. We're really blessed that we've managed to get this apartment sorted, but there's still a few other things like visas and things that need to be done. And thirdly, we want to hit the ground running. And for us, hitting the ground running is about hitting the ground, seeking God for what he wants us to do in those first steps. So I believe that God is speaking to it all the time. And so would you please pray that we would be tuned into what he's saying, that we're tuned in to what he wants to say to us in those first few steps. But thank you very much for listening to this. We really appreciate that. And hopefully it won't be too long before we're able to send some stories of what God's up to in Macedonia.